Welcome back, and let's move on. In this episode, I'm supposed to make a conclusion about what character is and answer the question what is human conscious. But first, let me pick up something I left over. In the part two, I am supposed to talk about every character. However, I left one character, which is collector. I didn't talk about. I did talk about a collector under this person, Joe Gillard. So let me talk about this character first, and then we go back to our conclusion about characters. Okay, so Gillard's dominant character is collector. In the past, collector was considered the good money character, and the gambler was considered the bad money. This is because in ancient China, everywhere people ever know belongs to the emperor. As far as they concern, businessmen were leeches of the country because they don't create wealth. So as far as they concern, farmers are good because they create something for him. Soldiers are good because they defend him. But businessmen, not good because they just buy something here and sell something there. They didn't create any wealth for him. However, which is not true. This is not true because according to modern day research, economy something, businessmen actually create wealth more than the farmers. But as far as ancient Chinese emperor consider, they don't like businessmen. So ancient Chinese culture was to emphasize agriculture and restrain commerce. Nowadays, gambler becomes the hot topic, and the collector is not being taken seriously, like by me, because I didn't wrote it, and it because it is not likely to make people very rich by working like a farmer, because gambler represents big money, speculate, uh, make invest big, big investment, big risk, big return. And the collector represents a diligent working, handmade money. And if you work like that, chances are it is not very likely to be very rich because if you can do that, everybody can do that, right? So we know why Gillard's money is collector instead of gambler because he's a salesman. One great sale doesn't make a career. You have to work hard every day to build it up. Since he's so good with money, why Joe Gillard has 40 jobs, no money, and 60,000 in debt before he walked into the Chevrolet dealership? The answer is hidden in his fortune line. Well, we, that's the fortune line part we are not going to talk about. And the entire part 3 is about fortune line, how to make real predictions. And as you see, there's tons of examples. And this part I don't need to say it makes sense like I'm doing now to show you a character actually makes sense because it is self-evident. You know, when the life code, when the fortune line suggests this person would success at the age of 30, we know that celebrity did success at the age of 30, or he will die in a certain year, and we know he did die in that year. So we don't need to prove it. And let's go back to the part I left out. Okay, we talked about Judge. Hopefully, you can learn something about Judge. For women, you should how to adjust your mentality and make your relation more stable, right? Okay, here. As we have seen, lots of what fortune-telling theory suggests are what we have known to be true. For example, lots of books or other media mention being bald attracts girls, but they couldn't prove their theories. They just said being bald attracts girls, but there is nothing to prove that, right? So what they said is basically, I'm right because I'm right. It's like the brain is the most important organ you have, according to the brain. It's hard to say, right? Because some animals do not have a brain at all. Fortune tell suggests being bought attract girls because money represents wife, and this is a circumstantial evidence. I mean, fortune tell is not designed to prove that point, yet it suggests the same thing, and that is a convincing power. So, fortune telling is developed very, very far ago. So it's definitely not mean to prove a lot of point, but still it suggests something which is we know to be true, and that is a convincing power. That is something that make people believe in it. Fortune telling theory is an experience model. We say that Chinese people worship sky, that's what we say, and that's not real. The real meaning is Chinese farmers pray for weather. Because ancient China was a farmers' community, weather has patterns, and it is very important in farming. Life code fortune telling is what they found in the search of the patterns of weather, and the theory itself is ancient people trying to explain it. Lots of the explanations are not right. For example, we know the five elements, right? But water is H2O. Fire is a chemical reactions. So the world is definitely not made up by the five elements. But it doesn't matter. You can see them as A, B, C, D, E if you want. So fortune telling is not invented by anybody, but we can still partially prove it with our modern day knowledge. So generally speaking, let's look at the big picture. The entire system, even without the fortune telling part, even it is an excellent psychological model. And as far as I see, this model is better than all the psychology theory I've seen, and I've seen a lot. One theory divide all personality into 9 types. That's a very popular theory. Another theory use different animals to represent different characters, and a theory use different color to mark different people. There are problems of these psychology theories. The first one is there are always particular situation that their theory don't work because not one type can entirely define an individual. So as an individual, we cannot be defined entirely by one type. There's always something within us that is not including that type, or something that type that is not entirely us, right? So another problem is more essential. How do you know those are all the types, right? So you divide people into 9 types. Why not 10, right? How do you classify personalities like that? Are those separate factors that made up human mind, or you just cut the cake in that way, right? So you divide the people in that into how many types? Into 9 types. So is that how human mind supposed to be divided, or that is just your way of dividing human different human attributes, right? So, for example, there's a popular model called something of personality. This is I don't think this is English. It divides people into 9 types. But if you ask the why question, the only answer is, well, that's the way it is. In fact, there is actually not a definition for personality in psychology. We have the concept, but we don't even know if the thing really exists. So the answer is right in fortune telling theory. Different characters are different relations that can be calculated between your ego and the rest of you, or we say the object awareness. This is a acceptable, feasible explanation, even in psychology. It not only sort people into different characters, but also demonstrate how character works in an essential level, and that is what we learned in previous episodes. In short, psychologists' personality model always fail at some point because they don't know what personality really is. Someone ignores the complexity of human mind and divide people in group violently. and some sees the complexity of human mind and declare it is impossible to abstract human consciousness. Well, they are both wrong. First, no matter how you divide people into different groups, there's always someone in between. This is because people have more than one character. We know that life code is 8 numbers, and people's characters are not just gathered together. They are systemized, they are layered and interreactive. Some of the characters are displayed on the outside, which which are frontline characters, and some are stay inside, which are basal line characters. Some of them are powerful and some of them are weak, and they have a relation with each other. It is complicated, but understandable and comprehensible, so conceptualizable. So after a right explanation, we can actually abstract it. It is complicated, but not impossible to abstract human conscious. So psychologists research human mind with our own mind. That's a problem. We try to understand other people's mind with our own mind, and that is actually impossible. We cannot see the big picture not because we're in the dark. We cannot see the big picture because we are in the picture, because we are using our mind to research other people's mind. What if other people are different than you? How do you know you are different than other people? If you know, right? So come back to that question. So it is a dimensional problem. Like a comic book character has no way to read the comic book. On the other hand, fortune telling is a reflection of the big picture because it is the result. You need to figure out why. If we reach our arm to another dimension, we will poke a hole on the fundamental rules of logics. Fortune telling is not designed to make sense, but the closer you look at it, more sense it makes. However, no matter how much sense it makes, one question is unable to be solved. Why human mind are related to time? Because life code can be calculated based on time. I don't expect that I can find the answer, and I just very proud to bring that question onto the table. In the past, I believed that fortune telling can be explained. Sometimes I could find some trace that might explain something. For example, gambler represents dad, and it would make people bald. Guardian represents mother, and it would make people conservative. Whether to a baby or to an adult, father always encourages children to go adventure. So people grow up with a father are more likely to have the gambler mindset. But is that how life code works? Is that true that life code shape people's mind by manipulating the family status? You can rule the possibility out if you try to disprove it, because I tried to disprove it and find yes, I can. In fact, the more you think about fortune telling, the more you'll realize that there is not a logical explanation. For example, once my parents wanted me to demonstrate fortune telling on my grandma, my father's mom. From what I saw, I told them that her fortune was not good in the first half of life and turned good after 1983. So obviously, that's how to read fortune lines, right? Then my mom said, indeed, 1983 was the year. Do you know what happened in that year? That was the year your dad met me. So that's my mom's word. Not in English, but that's what she said. Ever since I was there, your father's family indeed became better and better every day. So it must be me who brought the good fortune to the family. Well, that is an acceptable explanation, right? Her life turned better because my mom was involved. But on the backside of my mind, I know that my grandma's birthday won't change. It was fixed since she was born, so the life code, the fortune lines, won't change. It's set up. So whether my mom show up or not, my grandma's life would become better after 1983. So here comes the question: how are we supposed to see it? Is it a destiny that my mom would meet my dad in that year? Or whatever happened in that year that would make my grandma's life better, right? It's hard to say. Similarly, it is total possible. So there's a lot of question can be asked if you learn fortune telling. It is totally possible to spot the sign of spouse being stolen in a life code. But the question is, why, right? Does it mean whomever he married, the person marries, will have affairs? Or the person is destined to marry an unfaithful person, right? Maybe it means it is the person's fault because the information is in his life code. So, so it might mean something within him made his wife betray him. So cause and effect. So one thing doesn't work within the fortune telling is cause and effect. I have been bothered by a question like this. Someone was born in poor family and it shows in the life code. So what is the cause? What is the effect? Was he born at that time because he was poor? Or was he poor so he was born at that time? And either explanation can be ruled out if you try to. The only phenomenon similar to this is called quantum entanglement, which is a quantum physics term. Indicates two particles with no relation, no reactions at all. One particle status can decide another particle status. So that's quantum physics. If you don't know, I'm not going to explain it. If you know it, then you know it, right? As far as I can say, fortune telling is a reflection of another dimension. And like I said, because it is a result, which is why the rule of cause and effect doesn't apply. For example, 2D is a dimension lower than our world. As a 3D person, three-dimensional person, I can't imagine what a 4D would like, but I can look down to 2Ds because I know what 2Ds are like. Comic book is a world of 2D. Seems by the comic book characters, things happen to them are controlled by cause and effect. But seems by readers like us, there is no cause and effect. There is no real cause and effect because everything has been set by the author, right? So let's leave the mind-boggling question behind. I put all characters into context. I did that so you can understand characters better. One basic thing I haven't talked about is the combination of characters. So I'll stop here and I'm not going to show you the rest because I think I've already made my point, which is what makes up human character, what makes up human personality, and I hope you find it valuable in the development of psychology, something like that. I hope you can learn something. If you want to learn fortune tell, I can help you. If you don't, this still could be a very valuable thing to you. And that's all I want to say. Very long presentation, isn't it? But fortunately, that's all of it. And thank you for listening to me, and bye bye.